Hello and welcome to a new episode of Around the World in 7 Days. My name is Neel, and I am here with these stories behind the 3 most important international news events of the week. Today we will discuss how a potential Russia-Ukraine war may further embolden China and how it will be detrimental to India's interests. Then we will talk about the politics behind the war against Houthi rebels in Yemen and calculations guiding the actions of US and Saudi Arabia. In the end, we will discuss the story of a nation whose natural resources are fueling a new technological revolution across the developed nations of the world, but whose own state of affairs is marred by poverty and misery. But first, let's talk about Russia-Ukraine crisis. In recent months, the tension between Eastern European country Ukraine and Russia has reached its peak. The mobilization of Russian forces on the Russia-Ukraine border has increased the possibility of a full-fledged war. The whole world is appealing Russia to not attack Ukraine. However, Russia is not willing to step back. America and several European countries are threatening Russia of dire consequences if it does not shun the idea of attacking Ukraine. The US and the European Union have threatened to impose unprecedented economic sanctions on Russia. The US has announced intentions to impose sanctions even on Russian President Vladimir Putin. But due to Putin's obstinate nature, these threats are not having any effect on his intentions to attack Ukraine. While Russia has deployed more than 1 lakh soldiers on the Ukrainian border, now NATO has also created a stir by deploying warships and fighter planes in Eastern Europe. With the NATO's counter move, it seems that the war between Russia and Ukraine is imminent. In an earlier episode of our program, we had narrated the background of this crisis. We talked about the manner in which the relations between the two countries have been strained since Russia's annexation of Crimean Peninsula, a part of Ukraine, in 2014. We had informed you about NATO's connection to the issue in another episode. If you missed those episodes, please find the link in the description given below. In today's episode, we will discuss the issue further. We will understand the discussion on economic sanctions. For example, what are economic sanctions and what kind of sanctions can be imposed on Russia. At the same time, we will also try to analyze the effects that a potential Russia-Ukraine war may have on India. Ukraine is a country located in Eastern Europe. It shares border with Russia to the northeast and east. It is also bordered by Belarus to the north and Poland, Slovakia and Hungary to the west. To the south of Ukraine lies Romania and Moldova. When you look at the world map, you will notice that a large part of Ukraine is bordered by Russia. Even Russia's friendly nation, Belarus, shares its border with Ukraine. In such a situation, preparations are being made to surround Ukraine from various sides. The most prominent condition laid down by Russia for stepping back from Russia-Ukraine crisis is that Ukraine should not be given membership of NATO, a military alliance which has 30 members. Russia argues that if Ukraine becomes NATO's member, new security concerns will arise for Russia. Russia considers Ukraine's NATO membership as a potential threat to its borders and encroachment on its influence. Russia believes that if Ukraine becomes NATO's member, then NATO may try to tighten the noose on Russia. This is the reason Russia wants a guarantee that Ukraine will not be given NATO's membership. At present, many Eastern and Central European countries that were once members of former Soviet Union or were under its influence have now become NATO's members. Russia shares its border with 4 of such countries, namely Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. In fact, Both Ukraine and Belarus jointly share a longer border with Russia as compared to the combined borders of the above 4 countries. If these countries become NATO's members, then the border will be considered as NATO's borders and not the borders of Ukraine and Belarus. Hence, Russia wants to avoid such a situation. In the past, considering Russia's security concerns, US President Joe Biden was willing to consider Russia's terms. The US had assured Russia by saying that most probably Ukraine will not be given NATO's membership and instead will be provided security in case the need arises. In fact, things seemed to be working out on the above proposal, but now the US has taken its words back by declaring that it rejects Russia's demand. In such a situation, the tension on Russia-Ukraine border was likely to escalate and is indeed escalating. In fact, the Russia-Ukraine issue has become a prestige issue for both the US and Russia. On one hand, Russia feels that stepping back from the border will raise doubts on its military strength, while on the other hand, the US is of the view that by accepting Russia's terms, it is bowing down to Russia. Besides, America also wants to gain geopolitical edge in the Eastern European region, and because Ukraine is among the largest countries in Europe, supporting it will enhance America's holding in the region. Obviously, America does not want to look less powerful than Russia at any cost, so supporting Russia's enemy Ukraine is also a political compulsion for America. For all these reasons, the Russia-Ukraine conflict seems to be reaching its peak. Now, you must be wondering about the possible effects of this war on larger geopolitical dynamics. First of all, the whole world will get divided into 2 camps. The war will not only spread to Europe, but it can also become the foundation for Third World War. It might result in a completely new geopolitical order in the world. We also know that the relations between China and the US have been tense in recent times, while China and Russia have become quite close. When the Cuban crisis broke out in 1962, China had supported Russia. It is quite possible that if a war breaks out now and sanctions are imposed on Russia, then Russia will ask for China's support. If such a situation arises, then India's challenges will also increase. The reason being that Russia will prioritize China's support and India-Russia ties might suffer. This might also increase India's challenge on India-China border. Additionally, if President Joe Biden prioritizes Ukraine and its security, then America's attention will get diverted from China. This might further boost China's expansionist plans. In past few days, Chinese Air Force planes have violated Taiwan's airspace 24 times. If America gets involved in the war, then especially keeping an eye on the Indo-Pacific region will no longer be America's priority, and it will give China a golden opportunity to execute its expansionist plans. As we have seen, the Russia-Ukraine war will have serious implications on various geopolitical aspects and will result in chaos for the world order. Now, let's discuss about the sanctions that could be imposed on Russia. Let's begin by understanding what economic sanctions are. Suppose you go to a showroom to buy clothes and you have already selected your favorite clothes. But as you go to pay the bill, you realize that your debit or credit card is not working or has been blocked. In such a situation, you will not be able to purchase those clothes. This can be understood as economic sanctions. In economic sanctions, economic restrictions are put on a country's trade, different international tariffs are increased, financial transactions through banks are banned, and company and personal accounts are seized. A systematic attempt is made to weaken a country's financial system. America has imposed economic sanctions from time to time on countries like Cuba, Iran, and North Korea. And now, the US has warned Russia of unprecedented sanctions in case it attacks Ukraine. In such a situation, we can think about what restrictions can be imposed on Russia. In fact, the biggest economic blow for Russia would be removal of Russia's banking system from the global SWIFT payment system. While Russia has objected to this step, but Latvia has said that this step will be a strong message for Russia. Another restriction could be that Russia's Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline to Germany might be stopped from getting commissioned. Germany has made a similar threat to Russia in case Russia attacks Ukraine. In addition, imposing sanctions on the Russian Direct Investment Fund or the banks exchanging ruble into foreign currencies is also being deliberated upon. If this happens, then Russia's economy will be devastated. However, imposing such sanctions can be difficult. For example, if the European Union wants to impose a sanction, its member countries must agree on it, or else the sanction cannot be imposed. But the problem is that European Union countries have varying and diverse foreign policy equations with Russia, and they have their own opinion on imposing a ban on Russia. In such a situation, it might be difficult to reach upon an agreement for taking a common action. Now, we will discuss the effects that a potential Russia-Ukraine war might have on India. In an earlier episode of our program, we had informed you that Ukraine is India's important partner in terms of defense deals. India procures several defense equipments, including aircrafts, from Ukraine. In such a situation, if Russia attacks Ukraine, then it can increase India's challenges. But in the current scenario, the challenge for India is not limited to the above-mentioned issue of procuring defense equipments. If Russia attacks Ukraine and the intervention of Britain and European Union as well as America increases, then India will have to face major diplomatic challenges. India has been cautiously maintaining its ties with the US and Russia simultaneously. But if a war breaks out in Ukraine, then India will have to make a tough decision of either supporting the superpower America or India's oldest ally Russia. India's challenge is that it is dependent on Russia for crucial military equipments. At the same time, India is also dependent on America and Europe in various other spheres. Let us take the example of S-400 defense system deal. India made this deal with Russia, and America did not impose any sanctions on the deal. The reason is that India was somehow able to persuade America for allowing the deal to take place. But if Russia attacks Ukraine and the US gets involved in the war, then it will be very difficult for India to maintain a balance between Russia and America. America and Western countries might ask India to choose the side it supports in the war. The question of choosing one side will be diplomatically and politically quite challenging for India, as it is in India's interests to maintain close ties with both America and Russia. Let us assume that the war never breaks out and America imposes economic sanctions on Russia, then India's trade with Russia, especially the S-400 deal, will be jeopardized. Sanctions such as removing Russia from the global SWIFT payment system will pose challenges in procuring military equipments from Russia. It is feared that if a war breaks out between Russia and Ukraine, then crude oil prices can touch $115 to $120 per barrel. It can prove to be a major blow for India's economic recovery. Another important point is that if Russia gets involved in a war with Ukraine, then Russia can stop arms supplies to India. At a time when India-China border tensions are escalating, interruptions in arms supply could weaken India from a strategic point of view, and China may try to escalate the border issues with India. Overall, India seems to be trapped in the Russia-Ukraine war mess in several ways, and it will not be easy to resolve these issues diplomatically. A major airstrike was carried out against Houthi rebels in the Middle Eastern country of Yemen recently. Saudi-led coalition forces carried out heavy airstrikes on Yemen's northwestern city of Sada and Hudaydah port on the Red Sea coast. Dozens of insurgents are being claimed to have been killed in the airstrikes. These strikes were so strong yet it disturbed Yemen's internet connectivity. The war, which has been quiet for some time, intensified when Houthi rebels launched new attacks on Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates recently. In a previous episode of our program, we had narrated the full story of Houthi rebels. In that episode, the rise of Houthi rebels, the atrocities committed by the group, and the group's plans were also discussed. So today, moving on from there, we will discuss the updates about the ongoing politics in the region. We will look at the reasons behind Saudi Arabia not being able to withdraw from the endless war, and also the reasons behind Saudi Arabia and Western countries' interests in Yemen. In this episode, we will try to analyze the reasons behind these things. But first of all, let us look at Yemen's location. Yemen is a Middle Eastern country. It is a part of Arabian Peninsula and is located at its southern end. It is bordered with Saudi Arabia to the north and Oman to the east. It is surrounded by water in other two directions. To Yemen's west lies the Red Sea, and to its south lies the Gulf of Aden. Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, is located to its north. Yemen's population is about 30 million, out of which 70% are Sunni Muslims and 30% are Shias. It is commonly said that Yemen is completely submerged in oil. That is, it is a petroleum-rich country. But ironically, more than half of the country's population is suffering from poverty and starvation. The reason behind the country's current situation is that a civil war is going on for almost a decade in the country. Till now, lakhs of people have become the victims of civil war and have lost their lives. The number of deaths due to starvation and disease is more than the number of deaths due to bullets and bombings. If you read and listen to the news of Yemen's ongoing war, then you can easily infer that Yemen is facing a war across the lines of religion. Every strife across the lines of religion in the Middle East definitely includes Saudi Arabia and Iran, as these two countries are considered as the two major forces in the region. Whenever news of conflicts between Shias and Sunnis does the rounds, then the names of these two countries come to the fore. But then, it is only half the truth that the ongoing war in Yemen is only because of Saudi Arabia and Iran. There are two sides in the Yemen war. One is the Houthi rebel group and the other is the Saudi-led coalition, which has about 8 countries including the United Arab Emirates, the United States of America, France and Britain. It is a well-known fact that Saudi Arabia has close ties with the USA. Now, Joe Biden became the US president in 2021. After assuming office, Biden announced that America will no longer be involved in the war. Despite this announcement, Saudi Arabia has not backed off from war in Yemen. Therefore, the question arises that why is Saudi Arabia doing so? In order to understand the reason behind Saudi Arabia's interests in Yemen, you should look at Yemen's map. Yemen shares a border of about 1300 kilometers with Saudi Arabia in the northern direction. Have a look at some of the provinces bordering both the countries, such as Najran, Asir and Jizan, which are currently controlled by Saudi Arabia. It is believed that these areas were previously part of Yemen or were about to join Yemen. But a war broke out between Saudi Arabia and Republic of Yemen in 1934, and as its outcome, Saudi Arabia captured these areas. Therefore, it is believed that the current war is actually between the people of Saudi Arabia and the people of Yemen. For decades, Saudi Arabia has desired to dominate and control Yemen. The main reason for Saudi Arabia's interests in Yemen is that Yemen has vast reserves of oil, and once Saudi Arabia succeeds in capturing this region, it will become a superior power in terms of control over oil. Now you will ask that the reason behind Saudi Arabia's interest in Yemen is comprehensible, but the question remains that why has America been supporting Saudi Arabia in this war? One of the reasons behind America's support to Saudi Arabia in Yemen war is America's enmity with Iran. Since Yemen's Houthi rebels are followers of Shia sect, therefore Iran, which is a Shia majority country, is believed to provide arms and financial aid to Houthi rebels. It is a different issue that no solid, clear evidence has been found regarding Iran's support for Houthi rebels till now. However, the above reason is not the only or the most important reason behind the US providing support to Saudi Arabia. In order to understand the main reason behind America's support to Saudi Arabia, you will have to look at the map once again. In fact, some countries of Eastern Africa or Horn of Africa, such as Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, and Sudan, are quite crucial strategically due to their geographical location. All these countries are surrounded by the Red Sea or the Gulf of Aden. American soldiers have been fighting Al-Shabaab in Somalia for several years. America had intended to build military bases in these countries, but it failed in doing so. Therefore, the US looks at Yemen as an option for establishing its military base in the region. The US looks at Yemen as an option because the geographical location of Yemen and Somalia are almost identical. The second reason is that Yemen is located on the strait which connects the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean with the Gulf of Aden. Not only is this area crucial from a strategic point of view, but also 2/3 of world's oil passes through this region. Ships going from Asia to Europe and America also pass through this region. Just below Yemen's southern part lies the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which connects Asia to Africa, and it further connects to Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal. In short, this route connects Asia with Europe and America. It is one of the busiest routes in the world. This area is extremely crucial for trade and shipping. As a lot of oil reserves are located here, multinational companies are also interested in this region. For this reason also, many European countries and America are taking interest in the region. It remains to be seen that when this war will end and whether the intentions of the countries willing to reap benefits from Yemen are fulfilled or not. In today's last news, we will first know all about the country this news is related to. It is about a country whose wealth has become the cause of its misery and not its prosperity. It is about a country which is very rich in natural resources, but in reality it is in dire straits, miserable and helpless. It is about a country whose resources are not benefiting it much, but by using the natural resources present in the country, a technological revolution is taking place in the developed countries of the world. The unfortunate country today's news is related to is none other than the Democratic Republic of Congo, a Central African country. Congo, a country where all kinds of minerals are available, is included in the United Nations Human Development Index among the poorest countries of the world. Immediate reason behind discussing Congo in today's news is that recently its 29 soldiers were killed in an attack by a rebel group. The attack was carried out in Congo's North Kivu province. It is being claimed that a rebel group named M23 carried out this attack. It is believed that there are more than 120 rebel groups in eastern Congo alone, and M23 is just one of those 120 rebel groups. The eastern country of Congo is located in the middle of Africa, but its western end is spread till the South Atlantic Ocean. To its north lies the Central African Republic and South Sudan. To the east lie Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania. It is bordered by Zambia in the southeast, and in the southwest it is bordered by Angola. To the west, it shares its border with the Republic of Congo. Altogether, it shares its border with 9 countries. Congo's capital is Kinshasa, which is located in its western part. Congo should have been one of the richest countries in the world as it has immense natural resources. But unfortunately, colonialism, slavery, civil war, and corruption have transformed it into one of the world's poorest countries. It is believed that Portuguese traders reached Congo in the late 15th century. After reaching Congo, they felt they had found the land of their dreams. The people of Congo, a country which was rich in natural resources, also impressed the Portuguese. They perceived Congo as a great source of slaves who were tall, robust, and less prone to illnesses. The Portuguese eliminated all such local political forces that could hinder their slave trade and other commercial interests. Then the Belgians reached Congo around 1870. It was a period when bicycles and motor vehicles were becoming a part of common life in the Western world. For building bicycles and motor vehicles, there was a huge demand for rubber tires in the Western world, and rubber was found in huge quantities in Congo. Belgium took advantage and exploited Congo's natural resources. Although Congo gained independence from Belgium eventually in 1960, the country did not remain peaceful. As soon as independence was gained in 1960, a civil war broke out in Congo. The civil war, in which millions of people were massacred, was an outcome of ethnic differences. But in the present times, it is Congo's natural treasure that has become a source for its biggest challenges. Congo's eastern region is rich in mineral resources. You will be astonished to know that the country exports huge quantities of gold, silver, coltan, tin, and copper. Tin, which is used to make mobile phones and computers, is mined in huge quantities in the country. Coltan, which is used in making components of mobile phones, is also found in abundance in Congo. However, many such mines in Congo are under the control of local military organizations, and most of the mining is done illegally. A massive fight is going on in the country to capture these resources. More than 100 armed rebel groups are present in Congo. Capturing access to resources is the sole aim of these armed groups. Congo witnessed a civil war from 1997 to 2003. During this period, the First and Second Congo Wars were fought. 9 other African countries also participated in the First and Second Congo Wars. At first, there was violence along the lines of ethnicity and language. Later on, the competition for capturing natural resources made this war even more barbaric. Despite a formal ceasefire, war continues in Congo between different rebel groups and the government. In Congo, the rebel forces force children to mine natural resources and control all the profits earned from such activities. Billions of dollars have been earned from these activities, but the common people did not get their benefit. Only some of the Congolese elite and their foreign supporters who have exploited the country for decades are reaping the benefits of Congo's natural resources. Congo's condition is worsening constantly because foreign powers have focused only upon exploiting the country. They are continuously exploiting the natural resources available in Congo, and they are utilizing these resources for their own country's prosperity. On the contrary, Congo, which is providing resources for the developed country's development, has itself come to a complete standstill. Roads connecting the major cities hardly exist. Health services are running only with charitable institutions' aid. First the Portuguese and then the Belgians plundered Congo. And after that, the governments which came to power in Congo did not allow the institutions of army, judiciary, and education system to be strengthened, as they wanted to misuse and exploit the country's natural resources buried underneath the ground. In short, Congo is on the path to disaster due to greed, civil war, and corruption. Besides, as we discussed, the powerful countries of the world hardly care about Congo. Now let us have a look at practice questions based on the 3 stories of today's bulletin. 1. What do you understand by economic sanctions? Explain how Russia-Ukraine war will affect India. 2. What are the implications of the Saudi Arabia-led coalition fighting a long war in Yemen? Explain Yemen's importance with reference to its geographical location. 3. Why is Congo facing poverty and starvation despite being rich in natural resources? Discuss. That is all for this week's Around the World in 7 days. I will be back next week with new stories behind the events which continue to shape the world around us. Stay tuned.